Okay, this is going to be a demonstration of how you select different indicators and metrics that you might want to assess as part of your project within the Feast software. So the first thing I'm going to do is just create a new Feast project. Click up here to create a new Feast project. We'll select it to put it in my demo folder. And we'll create demo number 7. So there we go, just created my new Feast project. It's already created a feature data file and a biodiversity monitoring database for me. Now there's two ways in which you can explore and select the different metrics that you might want to assess. The first one is in the options and settings screen, and the second one is in the indicator explorer. Now in the options and settings screen, this is fairly basic. It's just a very rapid way of selecting which ones you want to include in your project. So here's all the metrics listed here. There's a whole range of them there. You can limit the list, so you might say, well, show me just those related to biodiversity, or just those related to ecosystem services, or you might say, actually, I'm only interested in those that are relevant to arable land, and then just list those there. So it may well be you go through actually say, well, I'm interested in biodiversity and maybe for woodland, and let's say I'm interested in doing bats. Well, in this case, bobtail bat. So you just literally click to unselect, and that then, once you click apply or OK, that means that's then set as an indicator you've selected for your particular project. The other way of doing it is to use the indicator explorer, which is off this little button here. And what this does, it gives you a slightly more friendlier environment, for want of a better word, to explore the different indicators. Again, you can just list them all, and we've already know that we've selected our bat. In this case, you can see it's a little bit more complicated. It gives you a breakdown of all the individual metrics that go into the spatial assessment for bats, so there's more than just one metric involved. But it gives you information about each of these, including what sort of features they apply to, what parameters are used for them, the background to the indicator, so what project or piece of science was it developed from, including a bibliography. So if we come down here, we can go to maybe something like hoverflies. We got a range of details here. If you pick the spatial one, it gives you all the details of the different metrics that go into assessing the spatial metric for hoverflies, and then we've got a bit of bibliography down here as well. And so you can go through these in the same sort of way. You can search, so say any of those show the biodiversity, and likewise we can go to woodland. And in this case we had our bats before. You can see that was already selected. I've got that there, but we might say actually we are also interested in maybe doing our hoverflies as well. So that's now selected those as well. So that's given us a means of two ways of selecting the spatial metrics that we want in the database. There are other ways of exploring it in here. You can go via your groups, so you can see all those metrics relate to amphibians, all those that relate to insects, mammals, and it's like anything, you just use the hyperlinks here to navigate, or use the tree view on the left hand side here to look at those different metrics that are available. So you can go along picking and choosing different metrics, and then selecting them using the little tick box at the top here, or deselecting them if you wish. So if we can come back here, if I go into where we were before, we can still see we've got our bats selected, but now we've also got hoverflies selected as well. Then basically what it does is then once you've selected those, and then you go in to start building the different features for your landscape, it will then calculate those when you save data for each of the features. So if we actually go in and create one, so we're going to add a new feature. In this case it's going to be a woodland, let's say. this case it now wants to know the size of the woodland, so let's say it's 2 hectares, 20,000 square meters. Woodland type, so what sort of woodland type is it? If you come over here, it will tell you the different types available. So let's say it's broadleaf. Let's go with broadleaf. Tree species, let's say it's a mix. And is it coppiced or not? Now if we go back to the impact tab, it's saying if you want to see the impact data, then you need to save it. You can either do that here or do it here, and that will save the data. And what that's now done is it's actually done a calculation for those different metrics that we've already tried to assess. In this case it's not coming out particularly well. So maybe it's simply down to the type of species that we've got. Maybe it's all native species that we need. See, there we go. So it was the fact that we didn't have native species in there that meant that we weren't getting a very good score. So that's given us some immediate feedback there. We can see that also in terms of data. I won't go into too much detail about that. We'll save that for another help video. So it's just showing you how if you add in different metrics to your assessment, they will then change the data input and put it up here. So if we go back to here, and if we come in here and say what other metrics might be relevant to woodland, so we might come in and say actually I'm interested in maybe pollination as well. If we now go back to our assessment screen, we can see actually now that's asking for a whole another range of data to be able to calculate that. So if we start entering some of this information, so if we say it's a very diverse mixture with very highly structured and so on, so it's just a description of it. Once we start putting that data in, it will start making a calculation for pollination. In this case it's coming out 0 at the moment because I haven't entered all the data. So that's how it works essentially. The more indicators you select, the more data you're going to have to input, so bear that in mind. But if you've got all that data to hand and you've entered it once, you can then chop and change which indicators you use, and the data is already there, and it will calculate those that you have selected and not calculate those that you haven't. Also bear in mind the more indicators you select, the longer time it will take to calculate some of these metrics. You'll also find that when you've selected those which have spatial metrics attached to them, when you go into the mapping interface, in this case it wants me to create a map, you will then find that actually on the spatial metrics tab you've got a number of those that are appearing here that you can then calculate. In this case we can calculate the barbed bat spatial metric from what we've selected, so that then allows you to start calculating that. You have to obviously set up a map to do that. Not going to show you that now, but it's just to show you how the metrics feed through to the mapping interface as well. You can see there's all the primary ones there can be mapped on the map, and you can plot them to see how they appear. So that's that section as well. So there we go. That's what you have to do. So whenever you set up a new project or a new data file, you need to select what metrics you want to include. If you're finding that you do have a common set that you use all the time, you can come into here when you haven't got a file open, and you can start selecting those which are just your default settings that you want. You can see there's already some here already set on my default, so that you can have those as ones that you commonly use all the time. So that's another thing you can set up as just the core of your software settings. I think that's all that needs to be shown on that, so I shall end the demonstration there. Thank you for your time.